brings age with it. Our young swords are drunken and giddy, and we, laughing and irresponsible, grow old before our time. We've lived our youth together. I lay all night by the singing Jordan River, my sword arm withered beneath me. This battle stuff is exhausting. My ears were pressed hard to the earth, and I thought, perhaps it was a dream, but I thought I heard you singing our praises to Yahweh. Seasons ago, when we were green, we would laugh and weep in the same breath, you remember. We slew the enemy with God's strength in our right arms, and you remember we even ate the forbidden bread when we hungered, a little bit of a prank. You see. My brother you were, and so you shall remain, I swear by my bow. And when the bow is broken, even then the oath shall remain. I swear by the dust of my bones, you are my Lord and my brother. You are the boss of me. I submit to you. You see? Well, the light is rising in the east. The buckling armor shines in the light. Like my longing shines to stand beside you in battle. And across the field an enemy comes. I go singing your songs to Yahweh. Thanks for the songs. May Yahweh bind you in my heart as I face the greatest battle of my life. Now, if 19-year-olds, 18 and 19-year-olds can think and write like that, how much more ought we? Yeah. It's okay. We can break down those things that keep us apart, and we can be friends like this. So what I'd like to do in the few minutes we have left is kind of analyze that friendship and give you and I some markers to target to develop a friendship like that amongst ourselves, okay? The great verse of Scripture that describes masculine friendship to me is the one you all know out of Proverbs 27:17. As iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. I think that's a description of masculine spiritual friendship. As iron sharpens iron. So I just took that little picture apart in my mind. How does iron sharpen iron? Well, the blade and the steel will just lay there unless something greater than either piece picks them up and holds them together. Otherwise, they'll never rub together. They'll just lay there. So the way iron sharpens iron is with some power holding them together, what otherwise would just either lay inert or move apart, propelled by magnetism or something. So what's the power in a masculine friendship that holds it together, even when there are irritants that would drive us apart naturally? That's the power of acceptance. Accept one another as Christ has accepted you. When you accept a friend like that, you have a power that will hold you together, even though you will do things that you don't like. You see what I'm saying? And you'll be tempted to drop the friendship, but the power of acceptance will hold you together when the days are dark. Okay? There's 4 A's here. That's the power of acceptance. And when iron is sharpening iron, something else happens. Eventually you get to where you're using a honing oil, remember? And that honing oil is necessary for iron to sharpen iron and get the right edge on it. In the masculine friendship, I call it the lubrication, the smoothing lubricant of affirmation. So we've got acceptance and affirmation, and then if you're really going to sharpen a steel on a blade, you have to rub them together. There's friction. There's some heat. You're breaking off the rough edges. The flint is sharpening, you see. We call that, in the iron sharpen iron masculine friendship, we call that the healthy friction of accountability. Okay? So we've got acceptance, affirmation, and accountability. And then one more thing, you need to get that blade just right. That's the right angle. Have you ever noticed that? It's the most difficult part to me. I can't do it. My mechanical aptitude is 0. Fortunately, my sister married a man who is totally intelligent mechanically. And so I have Rich sharpen all my knives because he gets just the right angle as he's finishing it off. And that just becomes a razor. I call that in the masculine friendship, knowing just when to pull the angle of authority. So we've got acceptance, affirmation, accountability, and authority in that order. Accountability is not Gestapo-like. It's after acceptance and after affirmation. We earn the right to accountability, and when we've been accountable, we earn the right to authority in one another's lives. Okay? So let's just look quickly on those. Acceptance. The power of acceptance holds us together when there are irritants that would drive us apart. I mentioned the brothers. We had 3 sons. We had more than our share of testosterone in our family. They were all warriors, they were all strong, and they were male, and they were competitive, and they lived in our home. And Linda thought, how many times are we raising delinquents? You know? I said, no, honey, they're just boys. That's what boys do. She had a sister. Her little brother's 13 years older. She was already out of the home by the time he was becoming a little boy. So she didn't know what boys were like. And they would wrestle and knock stuff around and break furniture and do all kinds of things, and Linda was dying. So there were irritants. Believe me, they had competition. You know how brothers can be. That's mine. Get out of my room. Stay out of my face. I mean, they're brothers, okay? But we had this little rule at our house. We said this all the time. We're never going to do it perfectly around here, guaranteed. But we are always going to do it together. So when one of those scraps would start, I put my hands in the middle, push them apart, and say, not here, you're brothers. You see, it's a learned thing, being a brother. It's a learned thing, being a friend. Now, they would have all the normal irritants that would drive them apart, but when push came to shove, where did they go? Together. One time, Blake's a sophomore in high school, Ken's a senior, and Blake's bending down in his locker, and some guy, a senior, comes by and grabs Blake's shirt, spins him around, rips the button, and squares off. And Blake says, Dad, I didn't know what to do. My little brain was working so fast. Should I run? Should I kick first? You know, should I get the deal blow? Shall I try to fight him? Shall I try to talk my way out of this? What do I do? What do I do? And the crowd's gathering, you know, in the hall. And he said all of a sudden something big came from the 400 hall all the way down to the 100 hall. Busted through the crowd, knocked a girl over, shoved that guy up in the locker, put his elbow on his sternum and pushed it like that and said, don't fight with him. He's my brother. Now, I didn't learn the rest of the story until about a year ago. They're pushing 40 now. And Blake said, yeah, well, that didn't end it. Because I was telling him how I sometimes tell the story. He said, after he shoved the kid against the locker and the crowd standing there, he decided he wanted a private conversation. So he grabbed the guy by the hair and drug him out into the courtyard where they could be alone and finish the conversation. That was brother. What would normally push them apart, their competitive spirits in the home? The power of acceptance. Remember Boys Town, USA? He ain't heavy. He's my brother. Man, when it comes to law of gravity, I don't even believe in it because he's my brother. He's the little one. I got him on my back. There's a storm coming. If I didn't carry him, he wouldn't make it. So I do not let gravity apply to our relationship. That's what we're talking about. The power of acceptance. My best friend called me the other day because we had breakfast and there was 2 or 3 other guys around there and he kind of was talking straight at me and he called me and said, was I too hard on you? I mean, I hope. I said, John, will you just knock that off? We're way past that. We're way past that. I know you and I love you and I know you know me and you love me and I love you for saying that right straight up like that. You see? You don't have to apologize to me, John. You're my brother and I accept you as such. It covers all the irritants that would normally come between us. Acceptance and affirmation. We all need affirmation, don't we? You know, what's the military word? Their class A's right here. Affirmation. I was there. I saw what you did. I affirm you as a fellow warrior. We call them ribbons or medals, but they're really masculine affirmation to another man, to another soldier. We need it, and have you ever noticed you can't affirm yourself? I mean, you can be Stuart Little and sit down there all you want with your legs crossed, look in the mirror and say, you're a really nice guy, and I think you're pretty special, and you're very gifted, and I love you. And you know what you say? You don't believe it, because it's you. But another man to affirm you will change your life. Especially when it's a man you respect. And he says, you know, when you did that, it made me really proud to be your friend. That's a man. This friend of mine, hardest thing he's ever faced in his life was his son's unfaithfulness to his wife. My friend John watched his mother die when he was 11 years old of cystic fibrosis over time. He said that was a picnic compared to watching my son destroy his family. And a lot of things happened as a result of that. And John was squeezed and squeezed and squeezed. And I told him just last week, I am so proud to be called your friend. And it moves my soul when you tell somebody, this is my best friend. And I want to tell you, you are a man. Because most of us, when we get squeezed, you know what comes out. But you have been squeezed like you've never been squeezed before in your life, and the only thing that's come out is nobility and the glory of God. And all the rest of us are standing, saying, wow, I hope I could be like that. And he said to me on the telephone from Arizona, well, thanks. You don't know what that means coming from you. It's come from me. You're the big one. You're the only relationship I have where I don't have to be the big brother. He said, well, I'm not feeling that way today. Thanks for strengthening my hand. Affirmation goes a long way. When Blake got married, you know how they write the little thing about the guys that are standing up with him in the wedding program? This is what, in his first draft he showed me, it said, Kent, you are my big brother, and if anyone ever really had one, they know the world of power in that. Ever since the day you fought off old, you didn't put the guy's name in there, no, we don't do that. Ever since you fought old so-and-so off my back, you have been on a shelf all year long. That's affirmation, and he wanted the world to know his love for his brother at his own wedding. You see, affirmation is so strong. Be affirming one another. Accept one another. I told the boys all their lives, I just want you to know, not always remember I will always love you, but that version of that. Ours was, I want you to know you'll never be able to do anything bad enough that you won't be mine. That's what my Heavenly Father says to me. That's a biblical doctrine, and my sons know that. So Brian calls from his freshman year in college. He's a big, strong kid. He's the one who taught me tender, 11 varsity letters in a 6A high school. Just a man. And he calls me in tears on the phone his freshman year, and he says, Dad, I've let you down. I've ruined your name. I can't believe I've done it. And I'm getting ready for the world. And he says, I said, well, what did you do? He says, well, I took a dare. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, I ran across the campus naked. I said, is that all? So, the point is, that's not letting me down. That's taking a dare, doing this dumb prank, and he got caught by the dean, and he paid a price. Perfect. That's what you call growing. You know? Acceptance, affirmation, and then there's accountability. Call them straight to each other. One time, I don't have time for the story, but I have a history of temper in my life. Maybe we can do it the next hour. But there was a guy who would come to basketball games with me and sit beside me, and when the temperature would rise, because it rose, he would just put his hand on my knee, and it was like a valve that just let it all out. And I didn't have to make a fool out of myself in public, like I had so many times. And I was the pastor. I was getting letters from church people, and I blew them off, because these are my sons, this is my sport, I know this world, and this is the only thing I'm keeping for me, so get out of my face. But I got this letter from this guy who had been in an accountability group with me, and it changed my life. I know it saved my job. Very strong, accountability. And then knowing just when to pull the trigger of authority in the friendship. That's what I experienced with John. One time we were going on a vacation. We were so poor we didn't have anything, but John had horses and mules, and he would take us a week into the Eagle Cap Wilderness, and our families would camp together there with the horses and mules and watch the elk and the deer. It was just glory, glory. But of course, the point of a vacation is to get there. You know what I mean? That's what they would say. More warrior than tender. And there's mules, and there's another name for mules that we don't use in church, but they act like jackasses. And these mules were bugging us and hitting trees and knocking packs off, and it was just frustrating. But when we finally got to the camp, we set up camp, the tents were okay, the ladies, our wives were down there in what we called the kitchen, enjoying a little fellowship around the lantern, and the kids were in their tent, and John and I were up on the hillside watching some elk come across the other side. And it was just heaven. You know what I mean? And then he turned to me. We were sitting on a granite rock. I can show you where the rock is in the middle of the wilderness. We were sitting on the rock, and he turned to me, and his face got hard and firm, and his eyes were steel, and he looked into mine, and he said, I don't ever want to hear you talk like that to one of your sons again. Anybody but John, I'd have blown him off. I'd have said, they're my sons. Get out of my face. I couldn't do that to John because he had accepted me. And he affirmed me, and we held each other accountable. He had every right to pull the trigger of authority in my life. And I saluted and executed because he